Hello, my name is Mick Jordan and I'm a Senior Engineer for FastNet International. Today I'll be showing you how to log into a blank virtual data center, connect a virtual machine up, so that'd be provisioning a VM, get it connected to the internet, and then what I'll also do is show you how to set up some NAT policies and firewall rules to connect back in. I think I'll set up SSH to a CentOS VM, for example, and I'll run you through all that in a few moments. And this is basically a tutorial on how to get up and running within a few minutes. Okay, so let's start. First of all, the first thing to start with is the login to your URL. So in this case, it's https vcloud.fast.net.uk/cloud/org/your organisational name. In this case, the organisation which has been set up for me is Demo Ltd. So let's log into it. You've been given these details by one of our representatives. So the first thing to do is just log in with your username and password to the virtual data center. Okay, so we'll see a completely blank virtual data center. Nothing in there at all. What we'll do is have a quick look at what resources we've been given. So processor speed we've been given 4.8 gigahertz of CPU power, 4 gig of RAM, and 50 gig of storage. Fairly low amount for a virtual data center, but as we're just demoing this, this is satisfactory for what we'll be doing. This can be easily upgraded and downgraded with the click of a button. So if you want more processor power, for example, we could just easily give you quite more on the fly. Same with storage and memory as well. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is create a organizational network. What you'll see here is with the virtual data center, we've got an actual edge gateway, which is basically a virtual firewall. If we have a quick look at that, we'll see that DHCP can be enabled if need be. This will give out DHCP to the internal network. NAT policies, which I'll show you in a moment. Firewall, I've already allowed. The default action is to deny, but I've gone in here already and allowed this. It is best to set up your own firewall rules, lock it down as much as possible, but for this scenario I'm just going to allow everything in and out on the firewall. Just a few other features here. We've got static routing, which will allow you to route between two virtual data centers, for example. This is out of the scope of this demo. VPN, quite handy. This will create a VPN to your office, for example. IPsec VPN, very handy if you want to have a tunnel through to connect all your internal machines between the two sites. And again, another one out of the scope, load balancer, if you need to load balance HTTP, FTP, for example. So we'll just leave that as is now. So the first thing we want to do is create an organizational network. This is going to be basically the cable that runs from our virtual machines to the edge firewall, and what we'll need to do is actually just create a range of IPs internally on the virtual data center, which will then give us access out. So the first thing we do is we want to create a routed network, which will then display the edge gateway we have available. So we'll select that. Gateway address, this is going to be the actual IP address that we tag onto the vShield edge, so we can give it anything we want. Let's just give it 5.1, for example. That's going to be the IP address on the gateway edge firewall. What we'll do is give it our DNS servers. And what we're going to do is create a pool of IP addresses. As I mentioned, you can use DHCP from the edge file. What I'll do is just create a static pool of IP addresses. One's going to be the gateway, so let's go 2 to 11. Just need a hyphen in there. Okay, add that. I'll give us 10 IP addresses. We have got a /24 there, so we can have 254 IP addresses available. I'm just going to enable 10 just for the purposes of this demo. Next, let's just create a name for the edge gateway so we can identify it. This can be anything you want, so let's just call it internal routed range. Okay, next on there, and finish. That will actually create the network which we'll use from our virtual machine to the edge gateway, and that's creating the IP addressing for all of that. You can click on the status of that to give a bit more information. You'll see it's running there and exactly what it's doing. It shouldn't take too long to finish. Once this is complete, what we'll do is then create a virtual app, which is a container for virtual machines. I think you have about 150 virtual machines within a container. So let's go ahead and set that up. Right, so virtual apps. What we might want to do is have a quick look at catalogs first. So what you can do is you actually can create your own catalog to have your own template basically. So if you have if you're spinning up a load of Exchange, for example, or SQL servers, what you can do is you can just install your SQL server or Exchange server inside a virtual machine first of all, template that, pop it in your catalog, and when it comes to actually deploying a virtual machine, you can just do that within a click of a button, and there you go, up and running. What we'll do is we'll create a VApp and virtual machine from a catalog that we've created for you already. It's just a list of the most popular VMs that we supply. In this example, what I'll do is I'll create a CentOS 64-bit VM, which will then pop into our cloud. So if we right click that, what it'll do first, it'll create a VApp. So we'll create the VApp, let's call that VApp demo. Next on there, and what we want to do is that's the name of the virtual machine, so let's call it CentOS. This can be absolutely anything you want. CentOS VM1, storage profile is vanilla. Next on there, computer name. That's going to be the name of the NetBIOS name on the network. It can be fine as it is. As I mentioned earlier, we can have you could set it as DHCP, or what I've done is create a pool of IP addresses in the virtual data center. So what we'll do is static IP pool. That'll then pick one of the IP addresses from the pool. And as you'll see here, the network that we're going to connect it to is internal routed, which, as you'll know, is the routed routed network that we just set up a moment ago. That's next on there, and finish. Okay, we'll see one task running down here if we have a look at that. So what it's actually doing is creating the virtual application. If we go into the administration and the virtual data center, we can actually see it's spinning up the virtual machine now. So that shouldn't take too long. You can click on the status of that and you'll see it's creating the virtual application, virtual app demo, which is what we called it. While it's doing that, let's have a quick look at other things we can have, you can do in your virtual data center. For example, you can have the demo user is the organization administrator, which we set up for you. You can then create other users. For example, if you just wanted a junior administrator who could only have access to the console, for example, set up that user, junior admin, someone you perhaps didn't trust, and username, password, etc. And okay, that would actually give you a little junior admin user, which you could then give to your junior admins, which could then only give them certain access. It's quite granular in that respect. Let's flick back to my cloud and we'll see it's created already. So let's go into the virtual machine of that VApp and we'll see it's the virtual CentOS VM1 which we created. It's a CentOS 6 VM, and there's the IP address it's given from our static IP pool. So what we'll do is go to the properties of this virtual machine. Again, we can change the names that we created. The good thing, very handy, is down here is the virtual CPU hot add and memory hot add. That essentially means if these are ticked, which you'll want ticked at all times, is if you wanted to add a CPU or a gig of RAM, for example, you can do that on the fly without having to reboot the machine. Very, very handy, especially with production VMs. If you wanted to simply give your VM more processing power. Hardware wise, we can change the size of the hard disk and create new ones if we wanted to. Once within there, we can extend the disk within the OS or create a brand new partition within that. Okay, so we're happy with that. 1 CPU, 2 gig of RAM, guest OS customization. This is the cool bit. And what you want to do is, for the first time we create the VM, is give it a password. So let's LTD99 for example. So that'll change the root password of the virtual machine, so we can log in straight away with that password. Let's click that. Okay, that's updating it now. So when that's complete, what we can then do is start the virtual machine up, say it's starting up, and then log into the console. So let's get this started up. So let's power that on. As you'll see, you can always click on the status, see what's happening. That's running, that's starting the virtual machine. In a moment we'll be able to look at the console and see what's going on there. See it actually booting up. Again, just there's some further information. What virtual app it's in, the storage profile it's in, etc. Okay, so let's the pop-up console. Okay, and there we'll see the virtual machine starting up. It will customize it the first time it uses it, so we'll set the password, then it'll reboot it again, which is just happening now. Once that's customized, then we can log in with the new password that we set, and then it's as simple as that, really. That's provisioning the virtual machine. What I'll do in a second is create the NAT policies, which will then allow us to connect into it. So let's have a quick look at demo LTD99, and there we are. Now let's just see if we can get out. We won't be able to, or shouldn't be able to, because we haven't got a NAT policy. So pinging Google's DNS servers, that's a no-no. So next thing we need to do is set up a NAT policy. So that's under administration, into the virtual data center, edge gateway, and what we'll do is go into the we can have a look at the IP allocations we've been given. We'd have given you a list of IP addresses out before you connected to it. This is a /28, so 57 being the first usable, so we can use 58 for example, with 62 being the edge gateway. 62 being the gateway from the edge gateway, sorry. Confusing. So right, let's have a look at the services there and create the NAT policy. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a rule going out. Yeah, so internal range, took a note of the IP address earlier, which is 5.2. That's the IP address of our CentOS machine. Let's give it 3075.58. That's the spare IP address. Okay, that. Add a rule coming back in. So 81, 31, 75. That's the IP address coming back in. 75.58, I think it was. I'm just going to enable port 22 there, which is SSH, and back to translated. This is a very simple setup. I'm just going to translate simply port 22, which is SSH. In fact, it might be a port already. Yeah, it is a predefined port. 58, 72. Okay, that. As I mentioned earlier, the firewall's allowed all in and out. So by default, it's deny. So what we do is create a rule to allow SSH out, for example, ping out, for example, that sort of thing, and back in, of course. But for the purpose of this demo, I'm just going to disable that just to show you how quickly and easily it is to set up a virtual machine and get that up and running. But you generally want to lock down your ports as much as possible. Okay, so that's just configuring it there now. Okay, that's completed. Status tick. Always a good sign. So let's go back to the console, see if we can get out this time. Ping.8.8.8.8, and there we go on the internet. And we can ping Google. Fine, that's great. Right. Okay, let's see if we can connect to it from externally. So this is from my PC in the office. So let's connect to it. 3075.58 port 22. That's great. Root, and the password, which is LTD99. And there we are. Virtual machine up and running. And we've connected. We've basically created a virtual machine within a few moments, set up a NAT policy, and created a rule coming back in. So port 22 is open, SSH port is in, and then we've connected to that from externally. And that is how easy it is to set up a virtual machine in your virtual data center and get it up and running as quickly as possible. Thank you for watching this. If you have any further queries, please contact your account manager, who will be happy to run through any further information.